So the mitochondria is another organelle inside the cell, and basically what it's designed to do is make energy. So we call it the powerhouse of the cell. It's double membraned because it's actually bacteria that we sort of have incorporated inside our cells, and they do a lot of cool stuff for us, like make energy. It has its own DNA, and it has its own DNA because it's definitely something that can live outside of us and be completely happy, but it's got this symbiotic relationship with us where we give it energy, we give it sugars basically, and a safe place to live, and then they give us a whole bunch of ATP as sort of rent. So it converts food energy into chemical energy, and that's called cellular respiration. The mitochondria is the only place in the cell that needs oxygen. The mitochondria is one of the only places in the cell that also makes CO2. So when we breathe out, it's because of the mitochondria, and when we breathe in the oxygen, it's because of the mitochondria as well. If we look at it, it's got this own shape. It's basically a bacteria, so it's got a matrix, a little fluid inside of it, and some different areas that I don't want you to know, but what I really want you to know is it has this enzyme in it called ATP synthase, and it helps us make a lot of ATP. It's definitely one of the most important enzymes on the planet, and our next videos are going to be talking about cellular respiration, and a lot of the most important parts happen right in here, the mitochondria. The other things are how cells move. Cells have some support and structures inside the cell to keep it going. It has this thing called the cytoskeleton, extracellular matrix, these junctions that hold cells together so they can communicate, and cell walls. Let's talk about them. Cytoskeleton is basically, so let me just show you what this picture is. It's the outer cell wall is in red, the nucleus is blue, and this green sort of meshy area is a cytoskeleton. And if you break the name down, it kind of tells you what it is. It's a skeleton for a cell. So it's a cytoskeleton. It's in the cytoplasm. It has 3 different types of fibers, which I do not want you to know, but basically each of these fibers allow the cell to have its structure. It also allows for this little highway system inside the cells. So when the cell makes a vacuole, it can actually move it from point A to point B. We have these little proteins. If you take some further classes in micro or in bio, you'll hear about them. They're called filamental proteins, and basically, or motor proteins. And motor proteins will actually walk a protein over from one side of the cell to the other, and it literally has feet, and it walks on these little fibers, kind of like a tightrope person. We have the ability to move. Some cells have the ability to move. So some will have this thing called cilia. They look like little hair, and they're designed so like they're in your pharynx. They're designed to basically spit things out. They're also designed to basically catch foreign particles. So they're in your nose and they're all the way down your throat. And then some of them will have this thing called a flagella. And flagella is designed for movement. So what this will do is spin, and it'll spin almost like a boat motor, and it'll allow this sperm to go from one end of wherever to another. And then outside of the cell, if we were to look at the outside of the cell, we would have so many different things. Let's look at it. We have, for instance, so this is the inside of the cell, the cytoplasm. Here's that lipid bilayer, and here's a couple of proteins. But let's look at the things that we probably don't remember. The collagen fibers, can you see this little strandy thing? Basically what happens is, if all these cells didn't have this connection to all the other ones, they would just sort of float away. So by having this collagen sort of tie them all together, it's like a netting that keeps all the same types of cells together. If not, then they might actually just kind of eventually separate off and float away. So this is kind of like a little netting. This next thing is called a glycoprotein. It sort of looks like algae, but basically what it is something that tells the rest of the body what kind of cell this is. So it's kind of like a name tag, and it says, you know, I'm this kind of cell, this is where I belong. So if it ever accidentally broke past this collagen fiber and started to float away, the rest of the body would know not to get super alarmed because it's part of us, but since it did float away and broke away, it would just destroy it. If foreign bodies come in and they don't have this exact sort of structure that matches everything that's in your body, it rejects it. So that's why when they do organ transplants, they have to make sure that they could take an organ from one person and it has to be a match for another person. And what they're matching is this, the structure. And if it doesn't match, then they can't use it because it won't last. And then, of course, we have some things that are mixing in this picture, like we have cholesterol, and cholesterol just keeps this fluid. Great. I think you know all the parts of the cell that you need to know for this exam. Sorry about my dog in the background.